Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hello, witches. Welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy. Today I have an amazing guest with me. She is a witch wound alchemist and creator of the iconic Bitch podcast. Please welcome Astrid Chaote.
Thank you.
I've been listening to your podcast. I know it's only a few weeks old, but I absolutely love it. I love your energy, and thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you.
So let's tell listeners a little bit about yourself so they know who you are.
Okay, so obviously I'm Astrid, and I think this is so funny. Like the first thing that's even coming to mind is like I just like to have fun with people online and work with people to what we're going to be talking about, like be unapologetically them, weaving energy and strategy to create the life and business of your dreams. And that looks like a lot of different things, but basically that's the laser focus of healing the witch wound and becoming fucking iconic, like
Yep.
an icon in your own rights, right?
Yep.
So.
No, I love it. And that is how I found you. So I originally found you, it was probably months ago, I think, through your Healing the Witch Wound in Business workbook. That you had amazing advertising for. It popped up until I was like, yes, 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 I have to have this. I downloaded it, filled it out. I still reference it quite often. So that was what I really wanted to talk about today is the witch wound, but also your message of being yourself, living in your authenticity, and upping your self-worth, because those were the most, like, you have a way of spinning it and of talking about it that is just amazing and gives goosebumps, and I love it. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, a little bit of like all of that. So we could start with the witch wound, because I think this is a new concept that people are now realizing or learning about. So witch wound in like your own words.
So I think of the witch wound and what it is actually. It's a scar that we carry from, I mean, I would say that it's even before the burning times too, but that's where it's like really prevalent, where, there was witch hunts and all of this, and we carry the scars of our ancestors, also could be past life stuff, but it is imprinted in our cosmic DNA, our human DNA, that the wounding keeps us from being visible. It keeps us from speaking up, saying the things we really want to say, and just being able to live the life that you truly desire to live. I think that also shows up in ways that we don't allow ourselves to receive. Or I would say that's a pretty big one, but the visibility is huge. Saying what you want to say, huge. Having what you want to have, you can fucking have it. Like, you can have it. Just have it. So
No, that's something that I didn't realize until honestly reading your workbook, that that's something that I even suffer from. I've been doing this for, my business has been open for 11 years now. And I pretty big on social media, like as far as, keeping up to date with trends and things like that. But it's something that plagues me every day. And I never thought of it as a witch wound, but even looking at the fact that even if you maybe weren't a witch in a past life, seeing like we all went through that, and it's something like, our ancestors, like we all went through it. So even seeing it in your village, you know, like seeing what happens to people that are a little bit different. I think that's really what hit me, is that different.
Yeah.
And you don't want to step out. You want to blend in. You want to just kind of hide, because anyone that was a little bit different, man, got killed, tortured.
Yeah, straight up say it, say it, say it. Exactly. And it's so much of that. And it's also obviously we are designed to survive. Like we have pretty much two modes of operation, survive or thrive. And you can't be doing both simultaneously. You got to be on one track or the other. It's like having trying to run like an iOS app on an Android phone. Like it just doesn't work, right? So, other than like the death, there's also this fear of humiliation and betrayal, right? Which is huge. Betrayal is such a painful experience, way more painful than death, right? So, I think that that's a lot of it too, because in those times, women would have to turn on other women because there was a threat that if you didn't tell somebody that this person is a witch, we're going to kill your kids, right? And so it could have been sister against sister, mother against mother, right? It's ridiculous and disgusting, and we get to actually approach it now because even though there are some, I would say, low level witch hunts that still happen, we can pretty much do whatever the hell we want now. You know, we don't have to keep on staying in the struggle, right? It's like we are riding on the backs of so many people who came before us who did that work. And now we get to rise up and experience the benefit for it. And so that's what we need to do. That's what we desire to do, I think, as well, to step out of the struggle paradigm and really claim, hey, I actually can do whatever the hell I want. Let's do it. So, yeah, it's huge.
When did you come to this realization? Like, how long ago, basically, how long ago did you say fuck it and didn't look back?
So, I don't talk about this a lot like in my marketing and stuff, but I was actually a heroin addict for 10 years. So it's been 10 years since I've gotten out of that lifestyle. And so I think I've always kind of been like, fuck it, which is
Yeah.
part of my gift and the way that I'm able to bring people back to their self-worth and to take the risks is because I've kind of always taken those risks because I think at an early age I decided I am never going to walk into an office and sell my soul for minimum wage.
Yeah.
Fuck that, no way. And so for me, the other alternative was party, which
Yeah.
partying for me is not a party, right? Like obviously. Um, so, I got really, really sick and I almost died. I was in the hospital for 5 months. I was in the ICU for a whole month. And like even that still wasn't bad enough for me to change. I think it was around the time that I had my daughter that I started getting back into spirituality and stuff, and she's 9. And it just kind of, I fell asleep one night and I had like this, I started seeing sacred geometry in my mind's eye. And I had no idea what it was. But the next morning, whenever I woke up, I had zero desire to drink or do drugs or anything. So I feel like I'm really, I guess, lucky in that regard, or maybe I planned it to be this way. Who knows? Um, and it just kind of felt like my addiction just like fell off of me, right? So there was no more like struggling to stay sober. And through the years, over the past 7 years, I've been, trying out different things in business and sales and just transformation in general. And it's always, I mean, it's always been around this sort of thing. Like do what you want, like say what you want, be who you are. And I've gone through my own journey of becoming more and more authentically myself. But I was shit scared at the beginning because it's one thing to say fuck it to the whole world. I'm just gonna go and die in a ditch somewhere. And it's one thing to go fuck what everybody thinks, I'm gonna take over the world, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's it's probably my entire life journey, but connecting it with the witch wound, I was watching something with my husband one Saturday, and I just had it in my head, like drop in like witch wound. And I felt compelled to go into my office and started writing on all these post-it notes, like every single thing that was coming. And I was like, damn, I help people heal their witch wound. And I had already been doing it, but there wasn't a name for it, right? So that's how it all kind of came together. And like, whoa, we actually only have one core wound. And here we are working, trying to work on all these different wounds. The core wound is the moment you are separated from your divinity. The moment you think you're separate, that's where it all stems from. And then I see the witch wound right under that.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
stepping stone, I would say.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think that is amazing. And to just hear it and to see the progression and like how far you've come in 10 years is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that on this episode.
Yes, thank you for like, I don't know, I guess making it feel safe to say, or you know what I mean? Like, it's just not something that comes up very often anymore,
Yeah.
but it does feel relevant for some reason. So who
No,
knows?
and I just as my own journey too, there was a point where I hit rock bottom. I had walked away from my marriage. I had walked away. I was a mom still, but wasn't a great one. I walked away from my spirituality. And I think that was a point in my life when I gave it. It's funny that you said that there is definitely a difference. And like at that point in my life, I gave no fucks, period.
Mm.
And I was trying to figure out who I was because I thought I was lost. And when you hit rock bottom, one day you're kind of sitting there like, well, this fucking sucks. So let me figure out how to not have my life suck anymore. And I very slowly started piecing myself together. But what the weird thing that happened is when I started piecing myself back together, I somehow ended up with a lot of fear.
Mhm.
And I feel like every day, even the more that I made a lot of life changes. One of them started this business where I'm at now, which has been 11 years ago. I do teach people too. I have, but for some reason that fear just continues. And I think it's a difference between like when you don't give a shit about anything. It's there's something about that. But then now you have things to live for. You have goals, you have things. So almost it's like saying fuck it is a little bit harder now. And that's something that I even struggle with. And like I know who I am, but then wanting to put that out there to the like really who I am is
Yes.
so scary. So how do you help people? Like what would be a tip or something that you could give here, without going into too much of the program that you do, but or like giving away too much of that. But like how do you help people say fuck it in a good way to get themselves out there and to get themselves moving forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And first, I'll just say, like, I do not believe in giving too much away
Okay.
at all, ever. Like, you can never give it all. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that your genius performs differently, and performs is probably not the right word,
Yeah.
but it shows up different for based off of the use case, I guess.
Mhm.
Like, it shows up different on podcasts, different in your content, whatever. So, as far as what you're saying, what I immediately am having come up is just that there's this belief that you can lose, right? There's a belief that somewhere alignment still means there's a possibility of losing something, and that's just not how it works,
Yeah.
right? Like it's always, I mean, everybody's heard it's always this or something better, but it's living in that and going beyond the resistance and that you find out that it's true, right? It's one thing to have like a theory, and then it's another thing to go okay, fuck it, I'm gonna try this. And and it really is, the alchemy is in the action in those moments where your brain goes, oh, you know, this might happen. And then your inner icon is like, no, the fuck it won't. What are you talking about? Like, girl, no, it can only get better from here. It can only get better. Like, I don't lose things. Like, that's not possible. And that, I believe, goes like, you must go beyond the resistance in that as well to experience that as the truth, which is just a fear. It's just a fear paradigm and a belief in lack and limitation.
Mhm.
And I say just, like it's not a big deal, but I know it feels very real. And I would say that there's something to be said for understanding that the five sense perception is not what the reality is. And for spiritual people who know that this material world is last to experience our intention, that energy always trickles down. And the more, you know, you set an intention, and then as it's coming into the material, the doubts that were thrown into it, it just distorts the whole thing. So it shows up not ideal. And so we just really want to be able to support the intentions we put out. And I wouldn't even say trust that they're going to work out that way. It's like fucking physics. It's like law. And you
Mhm.
have to, I would say, know that. It's not even
Mhm.
about trusting that, just like knowing it and knowing it some more and knowing it some more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things we were talking in my group last month. Nope, it would have been earlier this month about um setting intentions and how to set and I can actually remember in my life times when I have set an intention and it's manifested um almost instantly or with certainty. And it's not a trust, it's a statement of fact. And that's what I told my students. I was like, the minute that you like you say your name, like my name is Morgan Moss, that's a fact. Bam. You have to state what you want with the exact same fact,
Mhm.
matter of factness. And the times in my life when I've set intentions and nothing has happened, I can look back now and be like, shit, I kind of asked for it, or I kind of was like, you know, hey, do you think maybe that I could do this? Like that would be kind of cool, right? Whereas the times when I've been like, no, this office complex that we're in is a prime example. Like when we walked into, or like years ago, we saw it, and I just was like, I love this building. I'm going to be here one day. And like that was it. It took 3 years. Do you know what I mean? Like we had to start off small in a smaller office space and then build up to, something over here. But 3 years later, when our lease was up at the other place, I said, well, let's go back to that office complex because I loved it so much. And they were like, oh, we don't have anything. And the guy's like, oh, no, actually, one came up yesterday. And I'm like, you don't say. I'm going to
Yep.
go ahead and take that. And that's where we are now. So there is not necessarily a trust. It's not like you said, it's not really a trust. It's just a fact. That's
Yeah.
how you have to do it.
Exactly. I think that there's something to be said here too around like just you just knew it and then you just went on with your life, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't like a big deal. And so one of the things that I think people get trapped in is this idea of instant gratification. Well, I'm doing the energy work, it should be coming this way. And it's like it shouldn't, like it should be exactly what you're holding and what you're knowing for yourself. And when we're looking to like spirit to ask for certain things and stuff, like spirit's going, bitch, you decide, like what, like choose, just choose it, right? And those two things very much go together, and it can be instant. Like these things can absolutely be instant if you really desired to create that opening for this office space immediately, you probably would have. But there was also other things you were choosing, and that gets to be cool too. It's just a matter of releasing that instant gratification, and patience is such a word that we don't understand. And it's not sexy at all. But the sexy part of patience is that the more patient you are, the faster things happen. And the key in that is that you can't be patient so that things will happen. It's because it's the way you want to feel. Like you want to feel turned on in life and everything you're doing. Patience is a part of that. Knowing is a part of that. And I would say that's probably the thing that fucks people over the most is like, I want it and I want it now. And it's coming from a very bratty energy that's like little kid throwing a tantrum. And I've definitely done this. I still do it sometimes, right? I mean, especially if you have a brat kink, you do it. Okay, you do it. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
So,
No, I'm the same way. I didn't think I had an instant gratification thing, but I think the older I get, I'm like, look, I did some work. Where's my thing? Where's
yeah.
yeah. And I have to sit back and think about the times where I stated something and then, years later and, it manifested. And I was like, no, that was when that's where my power was.
Mhm.
That's when I was most powerful, was when I was just stating it as fact and leaving. That's, I guess, maybe where your trust comes in. You're like, I'm going to state it, and I trust in the universe or whatever around me to start to transform to make this thing
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, it transformed to your will. Your will was solid, right? Like absolutely solid. There was no question about it. So there was one other thing that was coming up while you were saying that, and I can't really remember it now. I hope it does come back because I feel like it's really relevant, but sis lost it. It's fine.
So do you feel that, like, is there like a coming back kind of to the witch wound a little bit, this fear of being seen, this fear of being humiliated or being betrayed, or, anything like that? Like, is there almost a thought or a thing or a nudge or something where, like, when this pops up, I mean, like, is recognizing it the first step, recognizing that witch wound when it pops up?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so then after that, what's next?
Well, acceptance is key, right? Like, so this is another thing that I got out of my addiction. I was 17 years old in an AA meeting, hearing for the first time, and acceptance is the answer to all our problems today. And I weave it through every program I do because it is so important to just accept, like, okay, this is just what it is, right? It doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't have to define me unless I allow it to continue to define me. And we have to recognize and remember that, like, we have all the power. Like, our perception is fucking fire. It is so cool what it can do. And so going like, hey, I can recognize how I've been allowing this perception to mold and shape my reality. Uh, and if I've allowed my perception to mold and shape my reality before, what is stopping me from having a new perception, right? And understanding these things in a new way. Oh, I know what it was that I was going to say. So you said you were looking back and you can see how there were maybe the doubts and stuff thrown in that made the things not happen. And so instead of looking for, oh, I did this work, where's my thing? Where's my prize? You start looking for how the prize is showing up because we're always looking for evidence that it's not going to show up. We're always looking for that because we think it has to be this one way. And I can tell you with 100% certainty, everything I've ever wanted has come to me the exact way it needed to and much better than I could have ever planned it. And that comes from and also negative things that I wanted, because we very much have hidden agendas, very much. But it comes through like finding the evidence that it is happening, right? In the little things, and always coming back to just like the experience that you want to have, the quality of your life experience, in my opinion, is far more important than things. And it's that thing that allow things to happen and pop up for you in a way you can actually appreciate it, right? Like if you're trying to call in clients because you need it to prove that your work is good enough or that you're good enough, and if you have like a whole bunch of clients, then apparently you're good, right? And it's like, well, you have to actually see how good you are and how amazing you are and feel amazing and do things that make you feel amazing, and that just naturally will reflect itself back to you. That is the hardest thing to trust. So it's a very much tedious
Mhm.
process. It is very tedious, and like you have to go from this macro to micro in everything that you do in your life. And we're such big picture people that that is maybe a little bit hard for people to do, but it also goes like, can't be that simple. Yes, it is. This is so easy. Like it's so easy. And that just is mind blowing. We cannot wrap our minds around it. So, but it also can be really difficult, right? Coming into acceptance and like recognizing and making that shift over to the new operating system, that can be torturous,
Yeah.
like very much. And I think that a lot of us just kind of protecting ourselves from having to experience that a little bit too.
Yeah.
But once it's done, it's like a light switch that flips on. So, yeah.
No, I think listen, so in one of your podcast episodes, I will say there was something that you said that immediately I had that moment. I was like, well, shit, that makes more sense than anything. And that is, for a lot of people, affirmations or anything like that don't work because the minute you try to say, I am successful, your nervous system is like, no, we're not.
Mhm.
So you said in your podcast to change it to I choose whatever it is. And I was walking, I was doing my laps at the park and I was like, well, son of a bitch, that so I started. I was like, well, I choose this. There's no resistance.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, that is like, I've never thought of that. And I've never read it. You would think in all the, reading all the self-help shit, reading all of the manifestation shit, that, spiritual people, like we're always learning, we're always evolving. I've never personally read to create your affirmations to say, I choose. And I was like, damn, that's powerful. So I want to definitely thank you in person for that because
You're
I even had to hit pause and I'm like, shit, that is so obvious.
I know, right? Well, I've also never heard it either, and I really think that that's probably like my biggest contribution to the world. Is breaking out. It's like you don't have to say I am anything. Like your nervous system needs to feel on board. But then again, bringing it back around to what I was just saying about like we have all the power. Like spirit's even going like you decide. Like it gets to be what you want. It's just like Burger King, have it your way, honey. Like right. And so it makes far more sense to choose. Like, I'm going to choose that, hey, even though my nervous system is a little bit stressed out, I'm going to turn on the video and I'm going to do a live stream, right? And
Mhm.
it's going to be excellent or whatever. I know that that's kind of more a story, but I choose to show up powerfully today and whatever that looks like. It's those little things again. And I would say too, like instead of manifesting with I am statements around like I am wealthy, right? Even breaking those down and looking at what does wealthy mean to you exactly, and why not manifest those things, because those are usually going to be ways of being, ways of showing up, and that's far more important than wealth. Because if you, again, like if you are trying to create wealth to prove you're not enough, you're gonna have it and you're gonna go, fuck, I still am not full, right? My first 10K month, I thought I had been working so hard for it and it happened and I was just filled with shame. I didn't feel anything other than shame. And I thought, this is surely going to make me feel, worthy and all of this. And I was just like, damn, that's what people mean whenever they say it's not about the money. Okay. But if you haven't ever made that kind of money, you're not going to hear that. Like, oh, okay, easy for you to say you have the money. Like, well, okay, keep banging your head against the wall, I guess. Have fun with that. I'll be here whenever you're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Ah, this has been so great. Like I've taken notes, like things there's just been little things. And I think that's one of the great things about having a podcast and being part of this witchy community is that I love being able to reach out, even to people who I'm kind of like, well, I like her and I like her message and I love what she says on her podcast. So I'm going to reach out. And so it is that little bit of selfishness for me because then I get to sit down and have one-on-one conversations with people like you. But so much comes out. Like you've been having things drop in and I'm like, oh, no, that's gold. Let me write that down. And this has just been absolutely amazing. So thank you again.
I love it. Absolutely. I think that those make for the best podcasts too, whenever you're kind of like, what do I want? What do I want to experience? Who do I want to talk to? So I appreciate you too. And I am so flattered that you feel that way about my stuff. And I love it. And thank you.
Yeah. So tell everyone, just to kind of wrap up, like where they can find you and connect with you. And if you have anything coming up, you are more than welcome to pitch it. So yeah.
Okay, so the easiest way to contact me is probably on Instagram at Astrid Chaote. Everybody always asks, like, how do you say your last name? Well, it's not my last name. It actually means chaos magician, and it's pronounced Chaote. So Astrid Chaote on Instagram, and like you already mentioned, Iconic Bitch is my podcast on Spotify. And yeah, I mean, on my Instagram, if anybody's feeling interested to poke around, I have different like entry level points for my work, depending on, if a person is really new and green in like business or showing up online and that sort of thing, or all the way to scaling beyond six figures in your business. So I think it's best for people to just find where they fit in my world and just go with the flow. So yeah, those are the best places to go, I would say.
Cool. Well, thank you again for joining me. And for all my listeners out there, thank you for giving me a platform to share my knowledge and have amazing guests like Astrid on here. And I hope you all enjoy it. And I will see you all again soon. Astrid, hang out after I hit stop. And yeah, but thank you all. Bye. If you're looking for a magical community where you can just be yourself, check out my Ink Spirit Coven. The Coven is an online learning circle for eclectic witches who want to learn new witchcraft practices and how to easily incorporate magic into their daily lives, all while being supported on their personal spiritual journey. And you'll have me as your magical mentor, sharing my knowledge, answering questions, and facilitating the online community. Head to inkspirit.com to learn more and join. And if unique witchcraft supplies made by witches for witches is just what you need, head to my store, inkgoddesscreations.com, to see what we have to enhance your magical practice. We also have the Ink Goddess Creations box, a monthly subscription of magic mail filled with exclusive items that fit a magical theme. Head to the site to see this month's theme and sneak peeks.